Now to the loudspeakers, the leaflets, and the balloons. Now, these are the weapons being employed in a Cold War raging between North and South Korea. Over the weekend, Seoul set up its speakers on the border for the first time in years, and it pressed play. The sound system sending anti-Pyongyang propaganda broadcasts across the border. It was in response to the North releasing dozens of balloons, hundreds we should say, filled with trash. Pyongyang says it will stop sending them when South Korean activists stop spreading propaganda leaflets. On Sunday, the South Korean military said that its soldiers fired warning shots after North Korean troops briefly crossed the border. It said it believed the group of about 20 men crossed by mistake. There's concern that this Cold War, that it could get hot and that the weapons could go from being psychological to being conventional.
South Korean soldiers stand guard, their attention focused firmly on the north. People here are on edge after Sunday's skirmish at the border, even if the military says this was not a serious attempt to enter the south.
Given that the North Korean military immediately moved north after our warning broadcasts and warning shots, we believe that they did not intend to invade.
But despite the reassuring words, relations between the two Koreas are at their lowest in years. Tensions have been ratcheting up in recent weeks after Pyongyang sent hundreds of rubbish-filled balloons across the border. Many of the balloons were said to be filled with excrement. That in turn led the South to restart broadcasting propaganda and K-pop across the border, reinstalling racks of speakers pointing towards the north. Now Seoul accuses Pyongyang of rebuilding its own loudspeakers near the demilitarized zone, speakers that had previously been removed. The Koreas have a long history of blasting each other with propaganda. The use of massive stacks of speakers goes back more than half a century. A deal saw both sides agree to stop using them in 2018. Their effectiveness has recently been questioned, and many see their reintroduction as largely symbolic. Balloons protesters in the South send to the North have proven to be much more effective. Their devices are often quite high-tech, and they can reach deep inside North Korean territory. These operations have sparked fury in Pyongyang. This week, the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un issued a warning to the South. Kim Yo-jong said it would face new counteractions if it does not stop activists from sending their balloons and continues the loudspeaker broadcasts. The tit-for-tat is only deepening the divisions between Seoul and Pyongyang and remains just one of the seemingly countless obstacles on the road to peace for the Korean peninsula.
Well, my next guest tonight knows what is at stake here. He's an expert on the Asia-Pacific region with a special focus on nuclear strategy, arms control, and missile defense, among many other things. He's also the author of the book Kim Jong-un and the Bomb, Survival and Deterrence in North Korea. It explores what a nuclear-armed North Korea means for South Korea and the rest of the world. I'm happy to welcome to the show tonight Ankit Panda. He's a senior fellow in the Nuclear Policy Program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Ankit, it's good to have you with us. Loudspeakers, balloons, troops getting lost. I mean, this sounds like a Cold War comedy, maybe a modern day episode of the Three Stooges. Why is all of this happening?
That's right. I mean, we are seeing the resumption of a familiar dynamic between the two Koreas, one that in the past has led to an exchange of fire, and that remains a possibility here, that this conflict could go from the realm of the psychological and the symbolic to the kinetic. And of course, the risk there is that things could get very quickly out of control. North Korea today is more confident than it has been in a number of years. Its capabilities, including its conventional capabilities, are much more advanced than they were in the past. And so the risk of a serious inter-Korean clash, I don't think, can be ruled out here.
I want to ask you about these balloons because they've gotten the attention of the world. Why is North Korea sending balloons over the border and not using more high-tech gadgets such as drones?
I think they see it as a means of symmetric retaliation for what they see as the nuisance of South Korean activists sending balloons across the military demarcation line that separates the two countries. Now, South Korea is a liberal democratic society under the current government in Seoul. There is a degree of respect for the ability of non-governmental organizations, civil society groups, to conduct this kind of activist messaging against North Korea. The Yoon administration in South Korea has emphasized the human rights of the North Korean people. The North Koreans, of course, don't accept this. They see this as an affront to their sovereignty, and more importantly, an affront to the political control that the Kim regime exercises in the North. And so, to retaliate in kind, they have chosen this rather unsavory means of sending their own balloons filled with filth across the demarcation line. That, in turn, of course, has now led the South Koreans to redeploy loudspeakers. And so this could continue spiraling between the two Koreas.
Yeah, you say unsavory. Some of these balloons, we understand, were filled with human excrement, and I assume that this is not by chance. Is this a psychological warfare, tactic of psychological warfare? I mean, is this the regime giving a psychological middle finger to South Korea?
In essence, I think that's pretty much right. I think the goal of this is to communicate to the South Korean people that the Yoon administration's policies are what have led to this moment. I think the North Korea's goal is not necessarily to punish the South Korean people, at least at this point. I think it's more to turn the South Korean people against the conservative administration in Seoul that has emphasized hawkish signaling towards North Korea more generally. So that seems to be the objective, and it's certainly unusual when it comes to North Korea's playbook. But in recent years, we have seen the North Koreans get a lot more creative in the ways in which they criticize South Korea. Most prominently, of course, at the start of this year, Kim Jong-un took the most significant decision he's taken, arguably, in his entire tenure, in that he formally recalled the longstanding North Korean strategic objective of unification with South Korea. And so what we're seeing now is taking place in a context of North Korea having fundamentally revisited its approach to South Korea.
South Korea, I want to ask you about the speakers. It's got these huge speakers along the border, blaring music and K-pop music on top of that against the regime in the north. Why does the leadership consider this to be a threat? The leadership in the north consider this to be a threat? I mean, I would think it would be more of a nuisance, particularly if someone was blaring K-pop music into my ears.
I think it's a matter of respect and honor for the North Koreans. I think practically speaking, they don't necessarily see this as an effective means of turning their people against their government, but they do see it as a symbolic step by South Korea to challenge their sovereignty, to challenge their political control. And in essence, I think they see it as an assertion by South Korea of the superiority of its political system. The North Koreans, I think, cope with this inferiority vis-a-vis South Korea, which is a more successful country in pretty much every single measure you might imagine, with the exception of, I guess, possessing nuclear weapons. But the North certainly, I think, has treated this as a significant affront to the legitimacy of the Kim regime in the past. Notably in 2015, this was the specific deployment of loudspeakers almost led to a significant conflict between the two before they ultimately did get into talks to de-escalate tensions. So that possibility does remain here. My hope is that we will see the two Koreas walk away from the brink rather than continuing to press their luck, because this could very quickly escalate into a serious clash.
Yeah, a lot of people share that wish with you, that's for sure. Ankit Panda with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. We appreciate your time tonight and your analysis. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.